YouTube, it's been a long time. We're gonna open this box right now. Super excited to be bringing you this. It's like twins for my favorite plane, which you're gonna see in a second. Some of you probably already know what I'm talking about. Some of you might be saying, which plane is it, Brian? Well, you'll find out in just mere moments. Oh, this is a good one. It's gonna be so good. Yes, it's the e-flite F-16 in Thunderbirds livery. Amazing. One of my favorite jets to date. And we're gonna end up with a new one that is amazing. And hopefully we don't have to put 600 stars on. I am super, super, super excited to see this one fly. I suspect it's gonna fly a lot like the twin sister, whatever you wanna call it. And I'm just gonna throw that down there. Okay, so first, let's look. What do we have here? We have the Thunderbirds skill level 3. Wow, I'm in a 3 now. F-16 Thunderbird, well, does that include my bouncy-wancy landings? Yeah, extra scale jet for experienced pilots. But it's easier to fly with safe. Now, that being said, I'm gonna say this, guys. This is one of the few planes, at least as we configured it, we ultimately ended up setting up flaperons and we lost one aileron worth of As3x in safe, and it's one of the few planes with safe on, you can flip it upside down. So you do need to seriously be careful with this bad mamma jamma. We're gonna see what it looks like right now. It's gonna be beautiful. I can't wait. So the F-16, I have a super sweet spot, already breaking things, Brian. What is going on? It's the curse of flowers.
Right, that's totally it.
Somebody finally got the camera crew flowers.
Yep. Wasn't you.
Well, it kind of was. We bought the property.
Bought our property.
Mother Nature grew those for us. That was a gift from God to my wife.
Oh, look, right there on top. There's some stars for you to put on.
Well, those numbers,
those are the
yes,
numbers.
Those are numbers. Okay, so we're just pulling this all the way out, and I gotta forgive me, guys. If you may have noticed, our boxes sometimes look a little bit marred up, and that is because when we do these early releases, there are sometimes early samples that get sent out, so there might be a super small difference. Like, for instance, they might have already put a number on there, and so I'm not super worried about that. I just want you guys to know that we are aware of it, and we're not trying to really hide that from you at all. It's just that there's only so many available, and sometimes these early releases are coming straight from China, and sometimes they're coming straight from R&D. So it just depends, whatever's available. Okay, cool, so we're gonna unpack this right now. And I think we noticed that, okay, so there would normally be a spot for ordnance there. I'm assuming that this is the exact same packaging that came with the other livery that we experienced before, which was just in the gray finish. So we're gonna hopefully see that it is every bit as good. I don't believe this one even comes with ordnance. So we have wing joiner. It's hard to tell. That could be fiber. I think that's carbon fiber. It's pretty twangy if it's not. And the wings are super easy to put on and take off on this plane. So hopefully we won't have any issues there. We do have a little bit of dirt and debris. So you can tell they actually tested this one, which is pretty cool. So 1, 2, 3 spots. If you had the ordnance from the other one, then you'd be able to put them on because they have all the same receivers on there, which is pretty cool. Or not receivers, but sockets, and you know what I mean. The place where they slip into the wing. So if you haven't already followed along on our original experience with the F-16, this one is another wing joiner as well. That one definitely is carbon fiber. Okay, then you can go back and watch any of those videos if you want. Looks absolutely gorgeous. Let's show you this white finish. So that is painted white.
Oh.
Yep, not raw foam. Raw foam would discolor and kind of show through. This stuff will not. As you can see, it's pretty bright. There's a little bit of glow through. I mean, it is white paint after all. So that is looking really gorgeous, nice flat white, as opposed to what we're used to when we deal with foamies. We sometimes do have some issues there. Oh yeah, that's a gorgeous nose cone. Absolutely phenomenal. Of course, this one's held on by magnets. I actually think I have another one downstairs from an unsightly accident I may have personally caused. I had a few different rough landings with my original F-16 before we realized that we could do thrust reverse. And this was back when we were told that thrust reverse just didn't really work that good. Well, turns out it worked pretty freaking awesome. And we are definitely gonna share, oh crappers, there is a vertical stabilizer. I hope I didn't just break it doing that. That would be a huge bummo if I did. I don't think I did, I just heard the noise of the foam. You do have to take this straight off. Ooh, that's a little bit scary, I don't remember that. Oh, thank goodness I didn't break it. Is there anything hiding in there?
Not that I can see.
So we just found another good reason to watch the unbox videos on Brian Phillips RC, because you'll find out what you don't want to break. Now we're gonna note that there is a little bit of paint that's here. Yours will not come with that paint on there. And then it looks like all these are actually applied. There is a decal here. So we have a very good match on the finish color here. White to red covered up the servo. This time that's very nice. This here is definitely not gonna be on yours, but everything looks really solid. We have a very bright white tail. What's actually a vertical stabilizer light, and I love that feature. Plus, you'll note that there are no wires to manage. You just plug it in.
That's nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice feature. And obviously that paint is coming off of the fuse. Wow, that is a really good finish on there. It's just really all one color, and then it goes straight back to this. I'm wondering if the afterburners are going to glow through. Full televons, which is pretty cool. Or I think this is technically more precisely full functioning televator, because this is going to allow us to have the full control surface. There is a bearing inside of there, and then there is a bearing inside of there, okay? But not to be confused with televons, I believe you could reset up the radio system and have televons as well as flaps on the main wing, but you would have to redo a lot of stuff. So I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm not sure how this thing is configured yet. It looks like we have some, oh, those are missile rails. Okay, so it does come with missile rails without the missiles, okay? Now, my question for E-flite is, at this point, are there ordnance included or are there not? I don't think there would be on this type of a plane. You can tell this one goes over here, or at least that's the way it appears, although there's that big goofy nasty spot. The way you can tell is where the reinforced part is down. Touch that on the front. You see that's reinforced? This is foam, right?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so the reinforced part, because the F-16 has that narrow landing gear, when you're coming down to land, and I'm really glad that this thing is finished like this. I'm using the foam to protect the foam from the foam while I put the foam together with the other foam. So it will have a tendency to like tip over like this. And so this missile rail will help, but it's not as long as the ordnance. The ordnance would reach out longer in its, I think it's just a gray finish, if you want to call it that, the V1 or whatever we want to refer to it as. It's exactly the same plane, I believe. So we're going to find out with all the details shortly. Nut and bolt sack looks pretty straightforward. We have a couple of linkages and a few screws. Super simple for a complex plane. Guys, we love doing unbox build radio setups on planes that are simpler like this in terms of build, but then a little bit more advanced in radio setup, because I feel like that's one of the things that we bring for our audience here. Man, that looks really good. They jigged all this and then they decaled this. And the color match is actually pretty poor on that, but it's from a distance, you'll never know any better. Let's show them up close now. You see this? Darker, lighter. But it looks good. Like from a distance, you'll never know any better. Okay, so then I noticed that this stuff is thick and almost like a vinyl finish, and it does kind of obstruct our view of the panel lines. But there again, we're kind of in a spot where the panel lines would not be a huge issue. Definitely from a few inches away, you're not gonna notice, but we do show you those things just to give you an idea of what to expect. Absolutely gorgeous canopy. Let's show them the pilot while we're not having to trip over ourselves. Look at the head-up display. That is so cool. Obviously, lots of scale details here. Okay, so now I'm gonna try to take this out without damaging. Well, before I get too excited, the ventral fins are right here. I wanna make sure I don't forget to take those out. The ventral fins are something you'll miss if you're not paying attention, okay? So definitely wanna get those out of there just as soon as possible. Ventral fins go on the bottom. Those are super easy to install, and they do come off if you have an unsightly landing. Okay, so let's pull this over. Oh man, that is so gorgeous. Wow. Look at that. That is absolutely fantastic. I love this. Is one of my favorite F-16s in all the F-16s that we have. I'm just looking inside of here. You can see the Avian SPMXAE1100A smart ESC. So it's a 100 amp ESC, I believe, but it's a smart Avian ESC as well. So it looks absolutely fantastic. That white finish is really good on there. It's definitely not like a raw foam. Let's give an example of raw foam. Here's a raw foam plane, okay? So now this one's been crashed a few times, so please forgive me, but you see the difference? One looks like it's got like almost like a fiberglass finish to it, and then one looks like raw foam, okay? This might be a little better example. Now you'll see how it gets dusty and shows its nastiness. This is a super fun plane, don't get me wrong. Plane, quad, VTOL, whatever you wanna call it. But then you can see that raw foam always shows those little details there. If you point so they can kind of.
These little.
Yeah, the little bumps.
All the veining and stuff really gets.
It gets exaggerated. So that white finish helps with that. Now, is it a huge deal to me? Honestly, I'm not gonna say it's a huge deal, but to some of you guys, when you're talking about some significant money for this plane. So you wanna make sure that you're getting the best for your bucks, if you will, the best bang for your buck. Okay, so plane stand time, I do not want this to roll over and get damaged. So we're just gonna set this on here. Yeah, they applied number 3 already, so we would have to apply that if we were going to pick a different number. So of course, I don't really care what number it is, so I'm gonna just go with that. And looks like that's everything. We did not get a manual again, so that's evidently a new thing for us.
No, we're that good.
Yeah, we're that good.
We don't need it.
So the difference is now we should be able to refer to a manual on the other plane, the V1 or whatever you want to refer to it as. Now, does the box say if it actually includes ordnance? I doubt it would, because why would you have ordnance? Our Blue Angels F-18 came with ordnance. It was goofy looking. Does it say?
Seeing ordnance on any of the pictures.
Trey, I know, but there's room for it. And they certainly don't show it on any of the pictures, you're right. So maybe it just doesn't, straight up just doesn't come with it. And that would make sense for Thunderbirds. Yeah.
I don't see it in any.
I mean, it still might be kind of cool to like throw some ordnance on there just for extra fun. But we generally don't fly with ordnance. Right. So, you know, I don't know if I think one of the things that they do caveat wise on the Blue Angels and Thunderbirds is that they will put drop tanks on their airplanes because they have to get them from here to there and they have to go on long flights still. So they will put drop tanks on them. I think they usually take them off though for the shows because they won't fly with a bunch of extra fuel on. That would be pretty stupid because they're doing all the aerobatic stuff. All right, cool. So next thing's next. What does that say?
Large.
Large? Okay. Well, I don't know why. They're probably talking about these 2 rods. So the build on this is super easy. There's basically 2 wing joiners. And it says large, meaning long. The long one goes through here. Okay, so we're gonna slide that through. A lot of cheater holes on this plane, and they are needed in my opinion, because this plane blows and sucks nicely. Yes, both. Not just one. But you do have to activate the thrust reverse. I'm assuming at this point that we're gonna have to do that. Obviously the nose cone, this is like the easiest assembly ever, just because it's such a simple build. We do have to put on, I think we have to put on, don't we have to put on like a collar on the back here? I'm trying to remember. I guess we can put the wings on first, since the wings are so easy to get on there.
Okay. Normally
I'd put the tail together. Actually, you know what? That's pretty stupid. Let's put the tail on first.
Okay.
the vertical stabilizer and horizontal stabilizers first. Okay, so just you can see how easy this goes. Because we haven't even opened up the canopy yet. Oh, so beautiful. So yeah, so if you guys are wondering about storage and transport and all that, you're definitely not gonna have a problem with this plane because it's just a really simple plane to transport. And actually, we haven't talked about batteries. Let's talk about batteries for a quick second. Batteries that I like flying on this plane have been historically the 7000. And the 7000 is my favorite for this plane because it gives you a lot of flight time and I don't feel like you compromise any on performance. So that's always good. So I'm gonna go ahead and get those plugged in. I got a 7000 here. I got another 7000 here. That's a Gen 1, Gen 2. How about we do both Gen 2s? How about that? And we always like to get these things plugged in for our builds. But in this case, I think we're probably gonna get them plugged in and then we're gonna be like done with the build. Okay, so Gen 1, of course, we wanna plug in the balance lead just so it can start automatically. You can also bypass that and charge your Gen 1s without plugging them in, just so you know. Okay, cool. So we already put in all the rods. Let's dump out the bag of goodies. We got 2 connections here. And then we have a long, a short, a short, a short, a long, and a short, and then 2 really shorts. So the long ones probably go through this because the thickness of the surface, I have to imagine, is going to call that out. Although, wait. Oh yeah, that must be it. So these ones must go all the way through, I would imagine. Wouldn't you think, camera crew?
I think so.
Well, except I don't know how thick the wing is. Again, this is one of those reasons why it's kind of nice. It says large right here. I don't know what that means.
But you're gonna need 4 for the wings.
Okay.
So if these are the wings, so what are you gonna need for whatever
Well,
this
but
is?
this doesn't necessarily mean there's 4 of the same ones for the wings because it has to do with the depth. So I would say, I believe you're right though. I believe that these are the ones that go on the wings. Okay, so this is what goes on the wings. Since we have established that, I can't resist. I wanna slide it in. Oh yeah, what a fit. Oh my goodness. It's so easy to put together. I mean, granted, this one's been put together before, but almost certainly. But still, it was like really easy. I love that. Okay, so 1.5, oh, sorry. Maybe it's a 2. My apologies. 2 millimeters. And just so you guys get the prettier shot. Oh, it's so easy. So if you have one of these planes and you're thinking about bringing it to the flying field, you know, these stands are super handy for putting the planes together. I like when I don't have to take a plane apart, but you gotta admit, this is a pretty easy one compared to all the other EDF jets we have that, you know, have tons of wires that pass through, and it's like one of the hardest planes to wire up when you've got these jets like this. They almost always have some complexity to them that you don't think about. Oops, grabbed the wrong one. The Teleron, or the televator rather, needs to go in here. Okay, all right, so that's pretty straightforward. Now I am gonna try to flip this plane upside down, so just spot me on those rods in case they decide to flip. Okay. I'm gonna go this way. Just kind of doing it whatever way seems to work. And I do wanna really be careful about my, okay, that should work. It seems to be staying. This one here, kind of the same thing. Oh, the short one goes in there. These are the short screws because they go in and they bite that spot. Mm-hmm.
So those are the 2 shortest.
Yep, 2 shortest.
That would make sense then.
Okay, so right here. So folks, there is a tail hook there, you'll notice, and you're like, but it's not a carrier-based airplane. Why would they have a tail hook? Well, they do hook up the tail hook for testing, for ground testing. And then they also do the tail hook for emergency landings on shorter runways. And I think for practice, which is kind of weird because why would you have a tail hook on a non, you know, carrier-based aircraft? Well, it's just what they do. They have them on all sorts of planes that they wouldn't ordinarily use the tail hooks for. Now, because this already came assembled, we can just put these on now, wouldn't you say?
Do you still want to wait to hook them up?
Oh crap, there's holes in the inside and the outside. Do you see that over there? Which one does this have holes in?
In the first two. The two most outside ones.
Okay, so that one's kind of a tough one. We're gonna probably have to refer back to what we did on our other one. So we will definitely share that in just a few minutes. So we'll just get the rest of this assembly done first.
And we need to remember that we didn't screw in that vertical stabilizer yet.
Oh, we didn't? So it's
No,
gonna like
'cause we
fall
were-
out and get damaged?
Well, it's sitting in there right now.
Well, I was gonna say, just keep a hand under it then.
Yeah.
That was a good call, camera crew.
We
I'm
were
sorry.
debating about the screws.
That's a good point. And you know what? That leaves us with the long screws. So I was
So you were
correct
right.
in my assessment, but it was pretty much an untested guess at that point. Now, if this was a brand new factory unit, you'd probably have a couple extra spare screws. I do not have a couple extra spare screws in this case, but look how good the bottom of the wing looks.
Yeah.
It's very clean. I kind of wish they had covers over these. And I'm really, really, really hoping that they set up the electronics to receive flaperons right off. Even though they're not necessary, it's just, you can do so many cool things with that. Okay, cool. All right, and then by the way, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but like this is what I'm talking about. They put all the wiring in before they painted, okay? Then they painted. And so all the wires are covered. That's not covered. That's not covered, but this one is. So that's just, I love that attention to detail because it's the type of stuff that shows. Okay, cool. So let's very carefully, actually, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna pause. We'll figure out where our holes were on the other one. Okay, so we just went and compared notes against our original F-16, which again is one of my favorites. We love that plane. It has been an excellent plane. I'm just gonna pop these on. I just don't really see any reason not to for now.
Okay.
Okay. This plane, if you guys get your own, will of course come with an instruction manual like normal. And this is just one of the things about the early release. Occasionally we get extra features that accidentally get installed, which is gonna be so cool. Can't wait to see it. So that is not included, it is an option. So if you want the afterburner option, you gotta order it that. So we will link to, obviously, the plane, and then we'll link to the battery and the transmitter that we're gonna use, which is NX8. And then if you guys want the afterburner, we'll link to that too. So
I have to show them again now that you actually said what it was.
well, I didn't know it was in there until we were like halfway through the build. So the afterburner is something you have to install too. So just full disclosure. So hopefully it's not like a super complicated install, because that's kind of one of the things we do here on the channel. I'm just gonna get these both started so my hands are free. So 2 screws to put, I mean, what we have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws to put this plane together. That's pretty awesome.
Pretty crazy.
And this build has been short. So not that that's why you necessarily make or break a plane, it's just a really nice feature therein, I can say. From personal experience, if the build is not smooth, it definitely tampers our thoughts about it. And we've had a lot of planes that have been on smooth builds that have gone fine after the fact too, though. So it just depends on the plane. The fit and finish on this thing is phenomenal though, and it was on our last one too. The one thing about a really nice finished plane is that it's all the more painful when you crash it. So part of what we do here on Brian Phillips RC is we show you the latest and greatest planes and fixed wing, and we try to bring you as much of the helis and things like that. But what we also try to do is help encourage you to not get this plane if you're a beginner, because you will crash it and you will probably quit. Because if you're like any other human, you're gonna be very disappointed and very, very mad and very broke from paying for all that equipment that then got crashed in like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Also, planes that go like 100 plus miles an hour, you know, they might be a little bit more dangerous than you might expect. I mean, granted, we have a very good safety reputation in this radio controlled community, but you have to remember, it's not like nobody ever makes a mistake. Okay, so that is the way they go. You can tell because that little border is painted on the outside. Okay. So we're just gonna slip that down in there. I think I'm getting it right. Now these ventral fins have a very specific angle that they go in, and if you don't get it right, they won't slip in. But I gotta say, that looks really rad. Rad.
This is like the 1980s.
1980s. That's rad, dude. Can't wait to open the landing gear and see the landing lights and all the goodies. Okay, so I've got this set just so, because you have to clear your landing gear doors. Okay, so we're safe there. And really for us, the next step is going to be popping open the canopy. Oh yeah. So gorgeous. Okay, so we have what appears to be a wire and what appears to be another wire. And I have no clue what those things do. I assume that's for RTL elevator. Oh, right elevator. So they have all these labels on the wiring. Yep, left elevator. Okay, cool. So this has an AR8360T in it. Now, I don't remember what we had in the original. I thought it was an AR637. So I'm kind of hoping we have enough channels to command and control all of these amazing features. So we may need to look into that for a second. So we'll come right back. We're back, people. So there were some confusing things we had to work through. We're gonna do something that's not confusing for a second. This is a shelf liner trick that we like to put a piece of Velcro. I don't like Velcro on my batteries, especially when it comes to jets or any other battery for that matter. Loading batteries in this plane is one of the joys of this plane. It is one of the things that's very easy on this plane, and we've been super satisfied with it. Now, we mentioned earlier, a time or two, about how there was, you know, like scuffs and things, because this is an early release, so they sent us like essentially something they had demoed out or product development had worked on or whatever it is, okay? So we're just gonna go along with that a little bit longer here. We've got an extra wire and another extra wire. We think this extra wire is supposed to go to the afterburner, which is an option that has to be purchased and installed. Now, I also tend to think that these two extension cords actually went, and we see these additional labels here. Originally, these labels said elevator, okay? These would be plugged in, okay? So that goes down there to one of the elevators, and then this one goes down there to one of the elevators, and it's all tangled up, which is frustrating, but it's on a Y cable, okay? So I think what may have been happening is that whoever set this plane up set it up with televons, which I had accidentally mentioned earlier. And so as a result, there was two extension cords. So they were set up on channel 7 and 8, okay? I don't know that for a fact, but it doesn't really matter because we were fortunate enough to be able to get an electronic copy of the manual set. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, we'll just copy what you did on the original one. Well, you can't do that because this plane comes bind and fly equipped, or at least capable of doing flaperons, safe select, and afterburner because it has the AR8360T, which is not what was equipped in the original gray version. Now, we got ours to do thrust reverse, safe select, and never had the afterburner. Okay, so just keep in mind. Flaperons also gave up As3x on one of the wings. In this bind and fly setup, I don't believe we're gonna lose that feature. But just understanding the circumstances we're in, please be nice. We don't always necessarily control the way that they come to us in this case. This is one of those times. So trying to work the best situation possible is going to not always be as smooth as we would like. But on this one, I'm super excited because I kind of am torn. Do I want to do televons because it would look sweet? Or do I want to go for flaperons, which is kind of like something I would normally want? And so I'm really torn on how to do all this. But the radio setup is talked about a lot in the manual, okay? Unfortunately for me, I'm indecisive. So there is this afterburner here. And this is supposed to be installed. I believe that does come stock, but then there is an additional extension cord that's plugged into channel 7. Now, I don't know what it's for, so at this point, we're just gonna go ahead and leave it out. We'll figure it out very shortly. And it looks like we might not actually have the ESC plugged in, so I'm not 100% sure how this is gonna work, but we're gonna do our very best, okay? So medium grade, these are actually the higher grade straps. They're a little bit thinner than some of the most heavy duty ones. But we've been super happy with the way our battery's loaded. And it's one of the very few EDF planes that we have flown. I think that front strap we never really used, if I recall, where we can get the CG back far enough to be able to go ahead and flare for landing, as is pretty much required on most all of these jets, the EDF jets. Even with flaperons, you still end up having some concerns. Now, also the CG is marked off of this plastic, okay? Of course, on the bottom side. And you do test with the landing gear down. So we'll eventually come to that in more detail. But for now, my big thing is I wanna make sure that we can get the radio setup figured out and set. But I also wanna just warn you guys, if there's a little bit different on ours, please accept our apologies. We try our very best to do this as stock as possible so that you guys get the exact same experience or you can replicate what we've done. That all being understood, this is not a beginner plane. And if you're a beginner that's trying to do this plane, you will be disappointed. And we don't want to be responsible for that. We want you to keep the plane in a box and look forward to how awesome it's going to be when you can fly it. And I would start with something much easier like the Habu 50 would be a great thing to do, which is sitting over there. Really fun plane. You can, I don't want to say as a first plane, but you know, first, second, third, something like that. You could probably do that. It's a lot less money too. I mean, you'll spend less money on that. Well, let's just say it's a lot less money to the tune of like factors of multiples. Okay, so we're gonna turn on our radio system. I was flying the night Radian last night, so I'm gonna go to system setup and I'm gonna have the camera crew is gonna look away for just a quick sec. We're gonna disconnect RF and go to model select. Scroll all the way down to a brand new model, add new model, okay. Acro, create. It's gonna take a few seconds to do it because I think it's because we have so many in there. But this is the flaperon setup. Now, was there more than one page like this, camera crew? Is that the way that worked?
No, there's just 3 different options if you want to do 6 channel with or without flaps, and then the full 8.
And we have the 8 channel. Now keep in mind, if you're buying this as a bind and fly basic, which is what we generally recommend. By the way, just pause for a second. Bind and fly basic is the best deal.
Yes.
Get the bind and fly, unless you're flying Futaba or you're flying FR Sky or something like that. You're getting a very good value on an expensive receiver. And if you buy the bind and fly, you're gonna get the expensive receiver usually for like half the normal cost. If you were to go up against a plug and fly or plug and play, my experience has been that, you know, it's the better financial move in most cases, unless you're out of stock and you know, maybe you're buying it to replace parts on an existing plane, to scavenge or whatever. Okay, so we've got the model type. We already have set model name. This is where we type in the name, which is going to be the F-16 Thunderbirds 80mm EDF. So we'll go ahead and do that and come right back. Okay, so we typed in F-16 Thunderbirds and it was a little bit cramped, ran out of characters. So we took out the dash and stuff like that. So no big deal. Okay, aircraft type. This is the part where I'm not sure. They're suggesting we set up one aileron, one flap. And what do they say for tail type? They just say normal tail type. So my expectation is that what was going is that somebody had set up on the tail, they had set V-tail or dual elevators. Well, actually not V-tail, they would have set up dual elevators. No, is it dual elevators? Taileron, that's what they would have done. Taileron like that. And if they did that, then that's all hunky-dory, and that might help answer my question. So maybe we'll just do that, and we'll just come right back to it. I normally don't do this, guys. I don't jump out like that. So we have throttle, then aileron, left, then we have right elevator, then we have rudder, then we have gear, then we have flap, then we have left elevator, and then we have auxiliary 3. Hoo-hoo. That's probably what they did, I bet. Because that'd be aileron. Well, hold on now. Is there still an aileron? Yes. There's a left aileron. No, that's left elevator and right elevator. Then ailerons, then flaps. Because isn't that how they suggested setting this up? They said wing type, 1 aileron, 1 flap. So how the heck is that going to work for flaperons? That's what I'm so confused about. And they said where to plug them in. See, right aileron is plugged into channel 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's flap. Yep. Left aileron is plugged into channel 2. That's aileron. That's totally the way it's supposed to be. But then, how the heck is this going to work? Well, I guess we're going to find out if this works. Here's what we're going to do. We don't normally do this on Brian Phillips RC. We sometimes kind of like stumble into the answer to our questions, and other times we figure out how to do it from scratch. What we're doing here is like a hybrid between that and trying to solve a problem that we don't have all the information to solve. So we're just going to work our way through it, and we'll show you how we do it. Okay? All right, YouTube, you may notice it's dark. That's because I've been working on this all day. We're going to spare you the pain and suffering of this. We got an early sample. The sample had some things that were changed. We decided that we wanted and couldn't live without televons. I'm going to tell you this right now. If you want televons, you better be committed, okay? That's all I'm going to say. Because I have televons, I have flaps, yes, fast acting. I cannot make the delay work. I have tried literally everything, and I'll explain it later. We have no tie to elevator and flap correction. That's because it has been essentially disqualified because of the wing type. Rudder works, steerable nose gear works, retracts work, which are awesome. And of course, we're gonna go through the entire setup. We'll just scroll through all the information with you, but I won't bore you with actually keying it in. There are some weird things that have to be done to get this accomplished. That being said, there were 2 wires that came out of here. I think that's where we left off. One of the wires was just an extension cord that would have gone to the afterburner. That is an option. It is not installed in these by default. You have to order it, you have to install it yourself. We're not even using it. So if you're gonna do televons and you're gonna do flaperons together, which I do think is the premium way to set this plane up. It is, after all, an aerobatic plane. I want to have the most aerobatic capabilities, which is why, incidentally, I have set large throws on all the surfaces. Now, I may not need those large throws, so I'm probably going to have to do a little extra dual rates in Expo, and that's fine. I'm prepared to handle that. And I've already set that up. I also have As3x working. I do not have safe on because I'm using every single channel to do all this stuff. I don't have any adjustability for gains. I don't have any on-off for As3x or safe. I've given all that up to have flaperons and televons, which I think is the superior choice on this configuration, because that is sweet. Now, just because they move that much doesn't mean I have to move my stick that much, just to be clear. And also I may end up backing off the rates quite a bit. Now, that all being understood, because this is a bind and fly basic, we just happened to get one that had been worked on by PD or whatever, product development. And so as a result, they had changed some settings, and I had to kind of go back to square one and reverse engineer some things to figure out what they had changed. We figured out eventually that they tried doing televons, and I think they abandoned their efforts wisely, because the elevator, the televons, okay, independent control, are not necessary, but they're helpful in some regard, because especially if you have deployment of flaps, then you still have roll authority, but you're gonna have less roll authority, which you would still, again, get with flaperons. So just a couple of thoughts before I dive into this, because it is complex. I did have to factory reset this, and I did have problems, but the problems were all resolved by yours truly. It was a real pain in the butt. Also, these wires have been dug out mostly just to confirm things and kind of get things done. Also, there was identifiers for right televon versus left televon, so you'll have to do that yourself because it comes on a Y cable. it's very easy to do. Just unplug one, move the stick, whichever one moves, you can tape that. Whichever one doesn't move is the other one, because there's only two. Now, that being said, the wings are only one servo, and it's a very simple setup for flaperons. If you want to do flaperons and keep elevon, meaning that, not elevons, if you want to just have an elevator, a full functioning televator, then you can go ahead and do that, and you can keep the afterburner if you decide to do that, and you can keep the flaperons if you decide to do that. But remember, if you've only got 8 channels on an NX8, you're not going to have any channels left for master gain and safe on off. So just keep that all in mind. Now, for safe on and off, you can trade out your flaperons, and for a regular elevator, you can then have all the features. You can have the afterburner, you can have safe select on off, but I don't think you have enough for a master gain, so you can choose between those two. The correct choice would be to have an NX10, which allows you to have 8 pluggable channels in the AR8360T, and then you've got 2 additional channels for master gain and safe on off / As3x on off, okay? So just your mode button, okay? That would go miles to getting me past some of the hurdles I had to jump over today. But I still would probably prefer to do it this way. That's because I have another 80mm F-16. I love it. It's one of my favorite flying planes. It's great. And for that reason, I'm really sort of questioning whether or not I'm making the right decisions here today because I spent all day fighting this. Okay, so that being said, if you do decide to do the flaperons, you have to plug your ailerons into the aileron port, one of the ailerons into the aileron port, the other one into the flap port, okay? Which will be designated in the manual. You just basically separate from the Y cable and do that. It is preset and ready to rock and roll. You set your wing type as aileron and 1 flap. That's how you do it. And then you set the tail type as normal. You keep your 2 tails plugged into the Y, and then you're golden. You're ready to rock and roll, and the thing will work. Okay, now when you start incorporating the televons, where they have separate function, that's where you start running into a lot of complications. Okay, so hopefully we've explained that to death. So what we're gonna do is we'll show you real quick how this is gonna work. We have elevator, we have elevator, we have a roll left. As you can see, ailerons go up, and the televons go up. Same thing here. We have roll to the right, and we've seen a twitch on this wing the entire time we've been working today. On off, it's been very minor, but it's been there and definitely there. I think in flight, it's gonna be unnoticeable. It's been like in the milliseconds range. It's never stuck, and we have taken apart and made sure all the connectors were connected. So who knows? I'm not sure what to make of it. Y'all left, y'all right. Obviously, we've already demonstrated the landing gear go up and down. And so I'm gonna show you in monitor mode where everything is set up. So it's throttle, right aileron, right elevon, rudder, gear, left aileron, left televon, and then auxiliary 3, which is for thrust reverse, okay? So as you can see, it changes from -100 to +100 to +100 again, and that's because we have regular controllable thrust reverse. So I'm gonna show you forward thrust. Okay, you can see my shirt moving. Reverse thrust, my shirt's not moving. I don't wanna like blow my eardrums out, and then we'll do this very briefly because they're very loud. Okay, this is full pilot fatigue thrust reverse. Okay, so throttle cut's on. Everything's been tested. You've seen that it all works. Now, let's also demonstrate that As3x is working. This is going to be very hard to see. Okay, you're gonna have to probably take my word for it. Okay. I might need to give throttle to actually activate it. Okay, so throttle cut is off. Okay, throttle cut's back on. And I'm not hearing it, and I wanna show you what's going on. Okay, so because I've gone back and forth between a test model that was set up with wing type ailerons, 2 ailerons, and wing type flaperons, which should be almost exactly the same, but they're not. This is why I don't have it working, and I'll show you from the start how to do this. So we're gonna go back to, sorry about that, system setup, disconnect RF. Obviously we created a new model. And the model type, of course, is an acro. I am definitely not gonna select that because that's gonna reset everything. The model name, of course, was this. We didn't have enough characters, so we just did that. Okay, then aircraft type. We did dual aileron because flaperons did not work in the full suite of functions. It caused our televons to do weird things where they would like get out of orientation, and I was able to fix it with mixing, believe it or not. But then when I went to forward programming, one of the televons didn't work. And I'm like, oh, how do I fix this? So eventually I tried it again, it didn't work. So I said, okay, we have to abandon efforts. We went back to the dual ailerons and we were able to make it work, but we gave up the response delay. So like for flaps to go out slowly and elevator correction, we lost elevator correction and fast versus slow deployment, okay? So we'll see how it works. Maybe it's a big issue, maybe it's not. If it is a big issue, I think televons would not be worth it because those two features alone are huge in flight performance. Okay, so continuing on, then we have telerons here. Of course, we click the next, we just change the image to a Habu, okay? Flight mode, we don't even have a flight mode set up. We don't have anything else set up here except for channel assign. You have to inhibit auxiliary 2, which is by default bound up to, or not bound up, but assigned to B, okay? So B would do weird things. Then if you go to next, you can kind of see how everything has been assigned here, okay? Auxiliary 3 goes to the scroll wheel. By default, I changed it to G for thrust reverse, okay? Now, obviously, we have to make the thrust revert assignment. So one of the things to keep in mind is before you do any of this crap, make a regular acro, bind it to your model, and then set up your thrust reverse. We do have that in the other chunk of the video, right?
Yeah, we'll have to, we can put it in here.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
Yep.
But you guys will have already seen how to do that. But just keep in mind that because of the nature of the call out on the screen, which I'm gonna talk about right now, when you scroll all the way over here, they're calling out a certain control parameter that you can't replicate when you have this televon setup. You literally cannot make these conditions true at the same time from the sticks. So you have to have the wing type set to normal so that you can do this. Once you're in, you then need to have that wing type to be able to navigate the menu. The good news is once you've set it, the Avian ESC is programmed and then it is responsive on channel 8 in this case. So you don't need to screw with it. And so it's already set and it's no big deal. Now, the other thing you could do is you could use a programming box. If you don't know what the programming box is, it is this utility here. I think it goes for like 30 bucks. And it is something that we use only, you know, roughly a couple of times. We've done it on two. We actually had to do it on the airplane sitting on the table there. So we just did it recently on the video we did for the Beechcraft D18. Awesome plane, by the way. Very good plane. We also did on the A10 because they have twin ESCs. So the twin Avian ESCs are not accessible through this serial forward programming sort of interface. It's actually not forward programming, it's serial communication. So anyway, getting back to the point. Okay, so we're gonna scroll back. We're gonna go back into function list. We're gonna start with dual rates in Expo. We're gonna talk about what we do for normal settings. So ailerons are attached to the F switch. And so then we have 10, that's where we're gonna start. And then we have 20 with 90% rates. Now, in this case, this plane is probably going to call for more Expo than what we ordinarily would use because of the amount of throws and because of the amount of elevator, televon / aileron setup, okay? My hope is that when we deploy flaps, we can deploy flaps in such a way that we don't have a huge, obnoxious, ugly balloon. Now we can also mix in some down elevator, but it's much easier said than done on this plane. And I'll explain why later, but maybe I can just show you how to do it. So anyway, continuing onward, plus there's not gonna be a delay, so it's still gonna be a very responsive change that's gonna happen quick. Okay, so there's aileron, then elevator, same thing. We have 5, then 10% Expo, then 20 with the rates being dropped down to 90. Okay, again, I'm gonna start in this mode. If I need more, I've got more. If I need less, I've got less. This is the name of the game. I've always done it this way. It's always worked really good. And then there's occasionally times when we have to make adjustments, like on that D18. When we first started flying it, we found it to be slightly tail heavy on the 3200 4S, so we made adjustments to the elevator touchiness. And then later I flew it on 5000 4S, which is what was one of the recommendations anyway, and it turned out to be just gorgeous. But I still liked it with my higher Expo setting, so we went ahead and adopted and kept that permanently. Okay, and the permanent setting becomes the middle setting. Then I have a doubling and I have a halving. That's how I do it, half and double. That way, if you need a little extra throw for some extra maneuverability, you can go ahead and do it, or you can kick it down to really relax things if you're doing a super high speed pass. I don't generally click into higher modes or lower modes to do high speed passes. I just stay in my regular mode. Okay, continuing on. Okay, so that's dual rates in Expo. We didn't use differential, although with a dual aileron configuration, you can use differential. I don't recommend it because it just complicates things, and I don't find a huge improvement in performance. It just complicates things. Okay, throttle cut, of course, is set to switch H, and you can see right here, switch H is on. That is one of the first things you want to set, especially with a thrust reverse model. You don't want to get, if you stick anything long and slender into the back of that plane, you may get it cut off. Throttle curve we don't mess with. Analog switch. Digital switch setup we do use. Okay, now digital switch setup, I'm just going to highlight and I'll show you what I have for G. G comes with plus 100, 0, minus 100. So we just simply scroll down. Oops, excuse me. There's switch G. We just scroll down. We change this and scroll in the correct value, and then we're done. Then we scroll this in. Now why 100, 100, minus 100? So if you look at the monitor right here, that's because we want forward thrust. Can you go back just a little bit? There you go, forward thrust. Then we have reverse thrust, and we have pilot fatigue, which we will show in due time. Okay, so in forward thrust now, we can walk out of that menu. You could set up an audio event to say what mode you're in as well. I find it to be helpful for people that are new. This is definitely not a new beginner plane. Okay, mixing, we are doing a lot of mixing. Look at this mess. G to throttle. This is going to be the mix for pilot fatigue. You'll note that it's grayed out on those two settings because we don't want pilot fatigue on either of those two, but we do. Throttle cut is on, just verifying. We do want that. So rate at 125, 0 and 0. Now why 125 and not 100? I don't know. There's just a minor deviation in percentages based on my stick position, okay? So I want the full output and I want it right now with nothing more than the flip of a switch, and then I can quickly flip it back, or I can quickly throw throttle cut on when I'm ready to roll in the ditch. Okay, back to forward thrust, throttle cut is still on. That's literally how you do it. It's very easy. You scroll down here, you say G and you choose throttle, and then you come down here and you highlight, and you can actually deactivate other settings, and you can activate the one you want, okay? And then when you flip the switch, you can see what you've set it to. Okay, does that make sense? Good, glad it does. Now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 mixes, and I'm just gonna show you what I did. If you're doing the flapper-on configuration, you'll note that it's very similar to what we're gonna do, and of course I wrote down this. Now if you guys need to pause the screen here, we're just gonna get that in good lighting. Let's go up here and let's just give them a little bit of space so that they can see it all. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause now. You can look at my disgusting thumbnail. Okay, great. Now, for those of you that want to see how you scroll it in, you click on here and you can see that we have that tied to switch B. B is equal to left aileron, okay? The rate is 0, minus 100 with an offset of 50. All that's doing is getting these televons to stop being obnoxiously, irregularly in weird random positions, okay? You'll note they don't jump around, that's very good. If you do flapper-ons, get ready for jumping around. If you do a delay, even worse. But you can do elevator correction. It's just almost impossible because it's gonna go chirp, 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 chirp every time you switch conditions. Yep. As3x will still work, but it's gonna go chirp, 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 and I'm like, you're gonna crash. You're gonna put it on at 100 miles an hour and you're gonna be like, boom, done. They're gonna go like this. Yep. So anyway, or your plane will rip up. So I would not recommend it. Just do dual ailerons is pretty much what you're gonna have to do. If you wanna do it this way. Now remember, if you don't factory reset and you don't need televons, which is probably the smart move, just do only flapper-ons and you'll be golden because you can get all the features in. That's what we should have done, but we didn't know that. Of course, we never know, and we're dumb like that. We just push the envelope right to the end. Okay, and there's our left aileron tweaking.
I'm stubborn.
Okay, so B to left aileron. So it's super easy to scroll one in. I'll scroll one in for you here in a little bit. You scroll it in, it just, you just select what you need, okay? Then rate becomes minus 150. And since you're just looking at what the setting is, you can just scroll it in. You don't have to have a full explanation for it. And all you do is you gray out those settings that don't matter. But just remember, once you get B to left aileron, scroll down here and highlight B and change that first and put it on the mode you want. Otherwise, you have to type it in sometimes twice, which is frustrating, okay? Because you're gonna gray out 0, you're gonna keep 1, and you're gonna gray out 2. Now, why? I have no clue. I just guessed and checked until the freaking thing had an elevator that looked like this instead of like that. Like, why is this elevator up here? I have no clue. I don't get it. So let's mix it out. And then you mix and then they both move. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'll make another mix. And then this one moves. And then you're like, okay, well, that's great. Now we got to mix them both. And then this one goes up and you're like, oh my goodness. So anyway, this is literally how you fix it. I don't understand why it works, but it works. And not only that, it works in forward programming too. So I think what we normally call this is firmware glitch. So anyway, getting back to the point. So we're on B. And guys, I just need to say something really quick after the firmware glitch cough. I love this plane. It's worth the effort. Trust me, it is. I did more effort on the first one because we had to learn a lot of things to get there. This was an all-day project, really ticked me off because this should not be hard to set up. It is a bind and fly basic, should have come out of the box working, but it didn't. Anyway, early release woes. Hopefully you won't have that same problem. Okay, so now full landing flaps. Of course, we've got some more mixes going on. So you're like, but hold on, you've got other conditions to meet, right? So I'm gonna back out of that. I'm gonna show you the next one. This is mix 3. So again, we've got, in my flaperons, I did this on, you know, the last mix 5, but really we're looking at, you know, there's 4 mixes, okay? So you'll note that these end up being the same, okay? So put that in there and you can see, looks like I have something similar. This is if you're using flaperons. This is if you're using dual ailerons, which is what you should be using, okay? Because then you get that fast acting proper behavior. Okay, so 0, then 100, and a 50% offset. And you're like, why does it call that out? I don't know. That's what it took to get it to go straight. So then when I was done, I get everything set up and it worked. So B to left aileron. And basically what I was seeing was okay, when I deploy the flaps, which are mixes, I'm bringing the ailerons down, but then there's a correction that has to be made here subsequently. And I had to do that for 4 steps because these mixes are my flap mix. There is no flap mode because we're in dual ailerons. If you do flaperons, you shouldn't have to do this, but that's where these twitch and you'll have problems. Just believe me. I was gonna demonstrate it, but then I'm like, it's just gonna confuse people. Okay, so that's mix 4. We've got 0 and minus 100. Then we have an offset of 0, and then that one is just on, okay? Okay. And then this one must be the last one. This is mix 5. Okay, same thing. Now let's just show the people what happens if we take this out, okay? So I'm just gonna show you. So this one's 0 to 100. This is mix 5, so it's just, you're like, but hold on, I thought that was the same. No, it's left aileron and left elevon, okay? Watch what happens if I change this to anything else. I'm in that. Does that look like that's gonna work?
That doesn't seem very helpful.
Okay, they work, everything moves, but they're out of alignment. So that's why we had to do this. And yes, sometimes you just have to go through and figure it out. It sucks, it's not very fun because some of these things, in my opinion, you shouldn't have to do. But there again, you don't have to set up televons. I have to because I want it really bad. Okay, all right, so that's all the mixes. So basically we have the G mix, which is gonna be to get our pilot fatigue, and you heard the tweak again, that's normal. Normal as in abnormal, okay? Okay, so there's your mix. This is mix 1, 125, 0. Okay, that does your pilot fatigue. That's where it puts full blast reverse thrust when you pull that thing back on landing, okay? Then we have 4 mixes to control the left and right ailerons, okay? You got that one, then you got this one, Notice that it's basically the convention is that you've got the left aileron, then the left elevator, okay? Then you've got the left aileron, then you've got the left elevator. And you're like, but why do we need both? That doesn't make any sense. Just trust me. Right. Copy what you see, okay? I don't want to have to explain this anymore because, to be honest with you, you probably could come up with a better way of doing it. And if I talk too much, then I'll have to redo this.
Oh no.
My camera crew is going to then put me in the backyard, 6 feet under. Maybe even a shallow grave.
Yeah, 6 feet seems like a lot of work.
Okay, all right, so that's the mixing, guys. That's how you get your flaps to work. And subsequently you will be done, and then you'll be like, okay, well, that was a lot of work. And you can go into your servo setup. You can see I've set the travels to 150 on each of those subsequent things. Rudder, right and left ailerons, and right and left televons, okay? That just gives you more throw, so that when you move the stick, it moves it further. Why don't you come back here so they can see that as I do it? Okay. Okay, so more throw, more throw, more throw, more throw. I want more throw because I didn't think I had enough. Now, there are recommendations for throws in the manual. I don't like to look at those because I don't like them. So what I'll probably end up doing is I'll probably end up putting a lower rate and a higher Expo to compensate for these gigantic throws. But you know what? When you're in a pinch and you're trying to high alpha an F-16, I want to be able to do that. All right, so then, anyway, you also need to click and then go over to reverse, and you can either match these settings or just get yours to go the right direction. You'll note that I did reverse the aileron, and I reversed the rudder, and I reversed the left aileron, and you're like, wait, you reversed the left aileron and the aileron? You're right. That's the way it went. And if you don't reverse yours the same way, guess what? It's gonna make the mixes backward, and it's gonna get really freaking confusing. So if you're resetting to factory defaults inside of forward programming, so let's jump in here now. By the way, I got into so much trouble screwing with this today that my forward programming disappeared. And I was like, oh, great. That makes it hard to do forward programming. Like, it was just off the menu, like poof, gone. So I was like, well, I need to charge my transmitter. So I did. And I'm like, oh, I need to change the flight pack. And I did. And then it was still not there. So ultimately what I did was I had built another model that was just a blank acro to play with. And then I had bound it to that. So I had to rebind it to get it to go back to where forward programming would show up. So if that ever happens to you, that's probably what's happened to you. Or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's just gremlins. So hire the witch doctor, or who'd you hire? That's like a, you know, to doctor? Get the demons out.
Crystals, something with crystals.
Crystals? What are you talking about?
People like...
An exorcism?
No.
Well, there you go, okay. All right, so gyro settings, we obviously went through first time setup. And the way you do that is basically from this, you can go to other settings and you can do factory reset. I am not doing that, okay? Also the frame rate, you'll note, is already set for you here. And I changed that subsequently in system setup. There is a place to change that, which before I forget, I'll show you where that is. So click, scroll all the way down to system setup, click, disconnect RF, then scroll all the way down to frame rate, and you can go to hybrid from the default. Now, I don't even know that that does anything, to be perfectly frank, so I just want to let you know I set it. I don't even think it does anything, okay? All right, forward programming, gyro settings. Now that you're starting from scratch, you would go into As3x settings. These things would not exist yet, but yes, I did activate safe. And you're like, but Brian, you don't have a switch. Exactly, we don't have a switch. We don't need a switch. We're gonna tie it to something we're using, but we're gonna leave it off in both conditions. And we're gonna leave As3x on in both conditions. And yet it thinks you're using a switch. Okay, so As3x gains. This is the gain settings that we pulled out of the bind and fly. People ask me all the time, what are the gain settings? I don't know. Normal bind and flies do not allow access to this submenu. So you don't know, but this is what this was. This is the priority, 156 for all of them, okay? So I just went in here and you see how it says flight mode 3? And then the gear come down and you're like, flight mode 1. Well, that's weird. I didn't actually set any flight modes. Look, but there's still 2 of them. What's going on? This is so crazy, okay? Those landing gear are loud and fabulous, okay? So what you gotta do is you gotta set fixed adjustable. And they'll be adjustable and you're like, I do not want those freaking things adjustable. That's why it's not working. You have to set them back to fixed, dang it. Did you know that? Because if they're adjustable, you have to have an adjustable thing like a knob, but the knob is not hooked to anything. It's hooked to thrust reverse. I'm getting angry now, okay? So, priority is set to 156, and 156, and 156, and 156, okay? Check both modes. You have to check 2 modes. And then you have to go through safe and check 2 more modes.
Safe is not.
Heading, do not change this. This will literally hold your heading like this. You're like, I am flying this way toward the vase of flowers. I will not change. If you turn the plane, it will keep pointing that way until it crashes into that thing. So set it to 0, okay? Both 3 and 1. I learned that the hard way, not from crashing, from other people telling me how terrible it worked for them. Now, you can use heading hold, which is really cool on yaw correction. So you can get lined up with the runway. You can turn that on like with your landing gear down. And then your plane will be like, wow, that's super cool. And then guess what? You can still correct with your rudder, or you can just keep your thumb off of it and it will go straight as a freaking arrow all the way down your runway.
Hey, could you use that when you don't have a rudder? Like on planes that you complain about not having a rudder. Okay, sorry. It's been a long day. Just skip that.
This is a rudder.
No,
that makes
I know.
the airplane
you have,
move.
But we were
if you don't have one of those things, it won't do anything. Okay, coming back.
Okay, fine.
I don't usually poke fun at your hilarious questions because they're usually pretty good, but that one was bad. Okay, heading.
I think you understood my question.
So no, I did. You wanted to know if we could generate some sort of control authority from a thing that is absent.
Yes.
Time and space. No.
Okay.
Okay, gain sensitivity is 1. Look, you can't change it because no matter how hard you try to scroll it, it's not gonna let you keep it. It's gonna go back to 1. It's gonna drive you nuts. And you're gonna be like, I really wanted 0.5. Nope, no super real.
Okay.
You know why? Because this is your gain, and if you don't like the gain, just change the gain right here.
There.
Go from 84 to, if you want half of that, make it 42. If you want half of that, it's 35. If you want half of that, it's 25. You want half of 25, it's 22 and a half. You want half of 35, it's something else, 17, okay? But you change that here. Absolute value of 1 times gain equals value of control output, okay? So if that was 2, it'd be 2 times 84 equals 168, okay? If it was 0.5, then that would be half of that. So all you gotta do is just change that number so long as you're within the range of 100 and something compared to, 100, because it's percentages, okay? Does that make sense? You could also do 4 times, but you have to be adjustable for that thing to let you change it.
Right. Which is what you
These are all things I've hard-fought learnings today. Okay, fixed adjustable. And by the way, when you first bind, it's gonna go to adjustable because it's dumb. Be smarter. Okay, capture gyro gains. No superio. Do not do that. Okay, now you do safe first time setup. And it'll ask, you must set an FM mode. And I'm like, I just set an FM mode for the other thing, okay? So you go in here and you go to safe game. Now you can set the angle limits and you can make angle demand on. Angle demand is auto leveling, okay? But in my case, watch what's gonna happen. Look. Flight mode 3, flight mode 1. Okay, so there's nothing changing. Fixed, adjustable. Watch. Nothing's loading, okay? Capture gyro gains. No. See, nothing's happening. This is kind of weird. Look. Safe gains. You know why? It must know that we don't have something set. Oh, now it's standing me by. Okay, so I evidently confused it. Okay, stop warning me about things. Okay, I'm gonna go back into Ford. Sometimes that happens in Ford programming. Okay, so gyro settings, F mode setup. This is where we made our assignments. This is this is where this is where you can review your choices, okay? So flight mode 1, flight mode 3. Now you can do a 3-position switch too if you wish. If I had additional channels, I would use this to do As3x, off, and then safe, okay? Which would also include As3x. And that's where you turn on As3x, or you can turn on safe if you want. So if I wanted auto leveling, I can make auto leveling on when the landing gear down or something like that. I'm not doing that because I don't use it, okay? Now, safe makes it easier to fly. So remember, when you have a really fast plane that needs to land fast and needs to land perfectly, then safe is helpful, but it does not land the plane for you, and the plane will still stall. So you have to still fly it.
If you wanted safe on all the time, could you do it in both modes the way that you have As3x set up now?
Safe in both modes would be a terrible idea.
I agree.
It's dangerous because you're gonna have a humongous turning radius.
Yeah.
Okay?
Just somebody's gonna ask.
Yeah, but you can turn it on. Look, right. You want to see how to do it?
No, I mean, it'd be the same as the As3x, right?
Well, no, you would just go in here to the F mode setup, and then you would just go, okay, I want safe on.
In both.
Look.
Yep.
So now it's on when the gear are up, and it's off when the gear are down. Okay, but you'll notice it's not actually changing the mode, okay? So if I go into safe settings, and I go to heading and all that stuff, so all that stuff's already set, right? This is really where you're gonna have problems, because until you get that right, it's not gonna work. Okay, so the FM channel is already set to gear, as you can see. Gear. And they make these like 2 suggestions for you. Like, we suggest gear, and we suggest auxiliary 3. And I'm like, well, okay, great. You know why? Because we have dual ailerons, so it knows we're using those channels. So then when you scroll down here, you can change that to be something else if you want, controlling that channel. But just keep in mind that you do not want to change that here, because you're gonna change your gear. And in this particular plane, we're using the gear to cheat, okay? All right? And then over here, you've got As3x active. You could turn it off if you wanted. You could turn it on if you want. But you can see there's a change in condition here. So if you wanted the safe on, then you could turn it on there, and then you could have it so it's off there, right? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So we've got that off. Yes, and you can also turn on panic mode, all this crap, but you need channels to do these things. An X10 would have 2 additional channels that can ride above the pluggable channels, right? Okay, so we've gone over and beat that with a dead horse, or beat the dead horse. We beat the dead horse with the dead horse.
Yeah, I think so.
Man, there's a lot of dead horses around here. It's kind of gross. It's like we're making food, or what is it? Making glue. That's what they do with dead horses, right? Don't they make glue with their like?
I don't think they do that anymore.
Boots and stuff. Okay. So I'm showing you, as I push the elevator towards you, the rudder moves towards you. Now look, the elevator, it moves up, it moves down, it moves up, it moves down. Now this aileron, watch, it's gonna move up, down, up, down. It's very hard to show this. Normally I would adjust the gains way up, and then I would say like, see, you can see from like 14 miles away, because it goes, whoa, whoa. Can't do that. Nope. Okay, now watch. Flaps. You have to check every mode. Okay, watch. Up, down, up, down. Yes, I can see. Rudder, rudder, elevon, elevon, elevon. Because there are 4 unique channels going on here. You have to check every mode. So when you send me an email with a sob story about, I didn't check the modes, and then blank, you know, I warned you, okay? Up, down, right, left, up, roll up, roll up. That one's so hard to see on this side next to my belly. It's so hard to tell because I have a hard time rolling it in that angle. So what have we all learned? We have learned that it's much smarter to just use an elevator unless you really like, punishing yourself. Because if you would have just done a freaking elevator, Brian, you would have done with this 5 hours ago. And it would have been every bit as awesome. Because I'm telling you, that's just as good. Then, oh, well, there's already ailerons rolling the plane. Now, just a thought. If you wanted to not have the ailerons respond and just have the telvons respond, You can make a flight mode to do that. It would be cool. It would be neat. It'd be a fun little bar trick. Party trick. Party trick. What am I trying to say?
Need a bar.
Bar trick. Yeah, right now we do. So anyway, it would be a fun trick. It'd be a party trick. What am I trying to say?
Party trick is what you meant.
Is that what I meant to say?
We don't get out very much. I'm not
We
sure.
don't. We don't do these things. We just live here and do videos for RC stuff. So what my wife, when we were, you know, dating, she was like, oh God, I hope I can do RC videos when we get married and have children.
Spend my whole day.
She's like, I just can't wait to do more RC videos. I don't even know if you knew I was into RC stuff when we got married.
Unfortunately, I did not.
Otherwise, it might not have worked out as good for me.
I think I knew that when you were like 10, like all the 10-year-olds.
Are you saying I'm like one notch better than a 10-year-old?
40.
Okay, so anyway, getting back to the point, because we're off topic today because the camera crew.
Right.
We're gonna just stick this on and we're gonna check the CG because this thing is totally set up. Now, I hope that radio setup was not so inferior that you're like, I'm never coming back and I'm never watching. I'm definitely not liking the video. Well, like it anyway. Please.
Please.
Because it's a pain in the butt to do the videos.
You should like it because you don't even know what we didn't show you.
Just like it.
Anything else.
Like it. Otherwise, I'm going to publish the whole thing and you're going to really hate that one if you thought this was bad. So, guys, if you're at home watching and just chuckling at our suffering, it's almost as bad as a Dynam, but not even close.
Not even close.
It's actually nothing like a Dynam. It's like the opposite of a Dynam because at the end of the day, this thing is going to be awesome and spectacular and a thing to behold. If I could stick all the stuff in the hole, it would make it a little easier to behold it. Yeah, seriously though, it's like there's a lot of wires here and it's kind of annoying because it's just like there's no real good way to deal with it. And I think your planes, guys, like I said, these ones, when we get these early samples, sometimes we run into some problems. Like, you know, like our, you know, canopies pulling back a little bit and it's just stupid little details like that. We try not to make a big thing of it because we assume it's a sample thing. But at the end of the day, those televons look like they're not aligned either. If you want to take a look, you can give me your opinion. But it looks like they're really close. Nah, they're probably fine. I'm glad I marked them though. Marking it was a good idea.
Yes.
You need to mark
them.
You need to mark the side.
made the little marks.
Because you are going to refer to that like 57 times in radio setup and you're going to be like, ah, man, let's get out the calipers and measure again for the 14th time.
Yeah, just mark them.
I mean, yeah, you just mark them.
I don't know, they look pretty dang even to me.
Okay, well, if they look even to you, then that's probably not a great sign.
Thanks.
I mean, it's not your strong suit.
I can tell when things look off. Like.
Okay, so we're gonna check the CG next, folks, because this has been invigorating. The CG is supposed to be like 12 millimeters.
Plus or minus 7 from the
plus or
leading
minus
edge of
7.
the plasticky thing.
She's not being a smart aleck.
I am not.
She's being genuine. Genuinely 12 plus or minus 7. If you could do the math for me, that'd be great.
I don't do math on camera.
Really?
Neither should you.
Really? Hey, by the way, watch the rudder. As I slide this towards you, look at the rudder. Oh, it's going toward the camera crew. When I stop, it comes back. Mm-hmm. If you do heading hold, it'll just be like,
yeah.
yeah, am I supposed to like stay here?
This is what you told me to do.
And then when you move the stick, it snaps right back to square.
Super weird.
But it is very weird. It's very cool though. I'm curious. It's one of our long-term subscribers and patrons has asked me to talk more about that. And I have not been neglecting him. We've just been so busy.
About heading hold?
Yeah. Oh. About heading hold. Because he said, safe is not just for beginners. And he's right. Safe is not just for beginners. There is so much cool technology built in there. We just usually don't tap into it. And here's why. Because we do bind and fly equipment usually. And so some of them are not unlockable as easy as others. This one was really easy to unlock. Probably because the product development guys had their hands on it. So maybe yours you won't even be able to unlock. That'll be super great. It won't lead to 5,000 questions that I can't answer at all.
I'll just answer them for you.
Or maybe it will. 100%.
Okay, so we're marking from
12 plus or minus what? Oh, I gotta close the gear, hon.
Ahead.
Watch those gear, watch them. Oh, sorry, that was Throttle Cut. Oh, so gorgeous. I love it, look at the light, so gorgeous. Oh yes, okay. 12 plus or minus what?
Okay, but what? Plus or minus 7, ahead of the end of the front
Which
plastic.
End? Point at it. Here, turn it so I can have it lined up like the plane. Like the plane, like this, okay? So that one from the end here. Okay, so 12.
Plus or minus 7, so 5.
So 5 from the end, okay. There's 5. Oh my goodness. 5 from here, okay. I'm just gonna make a little mark. Then I'll come over here and I'm gonna do the same thing. It's gonna be fantastical, okay? Got it. Then we wanna go to 12 plus 7, which would be 19.
Yes.
That seems pretty hyper specific on a plane of this size, if you ask me. Is it really not 20 and 5? Do you see what I just did there, Cam Crew?
Ahead of the end. Okay, I don't like.
Are you confused by this? You're acting like you're confused, and
Ahead of the end of the front is a lot of directions and prepositions.
That's why they put a picture here, I think. So look, we're looking at, there's a hole. This is the part that points toward the tail of the plane. This is the nose. This is the tail, okay? You wanna go 5 millimeters to 19. 19 millimeters, and this is 5 millimeters, okay? So 7 times 2 would be 14, gives you 19, okay? 5 is the starting point. From here, 5 millimeters, and then 19 millimeters. 5 millimeters to 19 millimeters, okay? And you're probably thinking to yourself, but Brian, you can't feel that with your naked finger. You're right, I can't. I'm gonna drill a hole with my screwdriver. Oh, that's disgusting. I can't believe you would tarnish a perfect airplane without any problems. That's right, I would, and I just did. And I kind of wish it would be kind of cool if there was kind of a molding on this, because it would make it a lot less scary for people like me that hardly know enough to get out of bed, let alone do something like this. Okay, gear down. That's what they instructed in the manual. Need my hearing protection.
I know.
It's so loud and awesome. Okay, by the way, another thing about this plane is hard to hold. There's like nowhere to hang on to it.
Just think of it out.
And by the way, if you have noticed, like, if you don't do it right, you could end up childless. So be careful. Seriously. Okay, I'm holding my fingers between the two spots, and it's, okay, so like on the front hole, it's nose heavy. On the back hole, it's very nose heavy. Can you move that forward, hun? Just towards you, pull it all the way across. Thank you, perfect. So what we're going to do in order to accommodate this change is we are gonna move the battery back, okay? So now we already did our shelf liner trick. If you guys haven't seen that part of the video and we like clipped it out rudely, we did the same thing we've done in hundreds of other videos where we did the exact same thing. But basically we take this Velcro that comes with the plane, and instead of applying it to our $200 battery, we apply shelf liner to it. And then it makes it really, really, really hard to slip and slide, and it holds stuff in place in an almost perfect way that's indescribable.
Indescribable?
I just described it pretty well, but it's indescribable. Don't challenge me. Okay, you see how I've done this? I stuck it all the way into the hole. It's large and thick. Oh, this thing is glued! I hate when they're glued. It's so annoying. So I can't even move it. I can move this one, I can move that one, but I can't move this one. This is the one I need to move, and I need to move it because that's how you get the strap oriented properly. You know, if you came to the other side, you might have an easier reach. Oh, good lordy, Lord, that's so frustrating. So guys, if you see me complaining a lot about how difficult it is to put this together, talk about first world problems. But anyway, I gotta admit, this plane is amazing. I'm annoyed with the setup. I felt like the setup on this could have been a million times easier. And why in the heck do I have to work around firmware glitches? It pisses me off. Is that clear? I don't want to work around firmware issues. I want them to fix them. I work around firmware freaking issues all the way through my career, and I have to figure them out too. I don't want to figure this crap out for these guys. I just want to open the box and make it look as awesome as it really is, because it is awesome. And by the way, the bind and fly is fine. If you want telebonds, you're going to be working through issues. That's the moral of the story. Oh yeah, that's amazing. Telebonds, telebond. Okay, so it looks like a whole dance of excitement. Don't forget to put the canopy on when you're checking CG. And by the way, oh, it's so good. It's perfect. If you ever get the 70 millimeter, you will be chasing wires a lot longer. Just so you know, it's not a bad thing. It's just part of life. Okay, I've got my holes. Okay. The back holes, and it's nose heavy. Front holes, and it's tail heavy, okay? Middle, okay, 1/3 back, it's tail heavy still. That's what you need minimum, okay? If you put a 5,000 in there, this is a 7,000. It's a big mama jamma. Mamma jamma.
Yes.
It's big. My recommendation, if you're not gonna be using that, because you are gonna wanna destroy your expensive battery, would be a 5100C. You're right, you heard me right, 100C. Look how much bigger the 7,000 is. Your flight time is gonna be a balmy extra 30 to 45 seconds. And you're like, really? 30 to 45 seconds? Maybe a minute. A lot can happen in a minute.
Not today.
Are you saying that the opportunity has been extinguished?
Okay,
so I'm gonna grab the tailpipe and just slide that battery back just a hair more. I got about 1/8 of an inch further. Sometimes the leads fight you when you're trying to put them in all the way toward the back because of where the, you know, that shelf ends. So I'm gonna just try this one more time. Oh, goodness gracious.
Did you miss the hole?
I'm feeling for it. They're very small. It's very tight. I like it. I should have done bigger holes. That's pretty good. I'm basically like between 2/5 and 1/3 between the two measurement points, 19 millimeters and 5 millimeters from the back edge of the front of the thing, plastic, to cite exactly the manual, verbatim. So, without further ado, we have elevator to the on, takeoff flaps, landing flaps, forward thrust. Oh yeah, controllable reverse thrust. Oh yeah. And then the all intense, and I'm just gonna hold the plane so it doesn't come off the counter. Pilot. Oh, it's so loud, it hurts my ear holes. Okay, there you have it, guys. Throttle cut's on. This baby is ready to fly. If you enjoyed watching my suffering, and I know you did, definitely smash the like button. If you want to help us in the smallest possible way you could, this is what you can do. Because I know you're thinking to yourself, you know what? That guy looks like he needs a hand. And I do. You can buy this amazing plane from the links in the video description below. And if you hate this thing, you're like, that thing looks like a turd, I hate it. It's not the absolute most gorgeous F-16 I've ever seen. I'm not buying it, except for maybe one in a backup. Or if you want this thing or that thing or any of these other things, and there's a bunch, hundreds more in the basement thing, then you can follow the links in the video description below. And you will be helping us immensely by funding this proposition where the whole family gets dragged into these huge messes that I bring upon us intentionally. And yet, I love doing it. I love doing it it's been an amazing day. I can't wait to do it again tomorrow. Right?
Nope.
Dang. So anyway, this plane is awesome. I can't wait to see it fly. I will very quickly forget the pain and suffering of this event. I promise you that, because when I see it cruising at nearly 100 miles an hour, about 4 feet from my wonderful, beautiful wife's face and camera, we're gonna forget all about the pain and suffering. I promise you, I will. Maybe.
I want to make childbirth jokes, but I won't.
Yes, so at the end of the day, this thing was not easy to put together because I did things that weren't designed to be part of the plane. And so I kind of bring that stuff upon myself from time to time. You may have noticed it in Brian Phillips' RC history. If you go back to the days of UMX planes and flaps that should have been, that weren't, and that I made into these planes, you will remember there was a day where we used to do that all the time. And that was a very, very frustrating time of life. And yet it was super cool because we ended up with some pretty sweet planes. Now, that being said, I think the wise thing to do on this plane, if you don't just absolutely need televons, would be to just set it up in the bind and fly configuration. Like literally just take the bind and fly. You don't even have to do flaperons. I know you're like, Brian Phillips, you can't say that's like sacrilege. The truth is this plane actually flies pretty awesome without flaperons. I know you're like, I'm gonna fall out of my chair. I'm just watching this like for 2 hours or whatever. Truth is, you need the thrust reverse if you don't wanna have a 900-foot rollout. And that's not an exaggeration. Like 900 feet would be realistic. The best pilots in the world will come in and flare, but they're probably not putting a 7,000 in and getting that flare that you're seeing. And yes, I know there are pilots out there that can do just amazing things. I'm not one of them. So I do the best I can, and we try to make them look nice and scale. But we do have limits. Everybody has limits, and I'm working on those, expanding them, making them better. But at the end of the day, I need about 900 foot of runway, and I need a lot of clearing on both ends to get this off the ground and to get it on the ground. And it is a gorgeous plane, and I cannot wait to fly it. It's gonna be awesome. And you can see from the beautiful LEDs and all this, it's gonna be great in the air. And by the way, these are bright as a you-know-what. And you can see them in daylight. The ones on the D18 were very dim. But they're okay because you're flying at a much slower speed. This thing's going like 5 times as fast. So not exaggeration, maybe 3.5 to 4 times as fast. But still, amazing plane, really well done by E-flite. We love working with E-flite. We love having an opportunity to do these early releases. This one was pretty frustrating, I gotta admit. And I hope they don't keep doing that, sending these planes with like random 2 wires sticking out, because that was not cool. We don't appreciate it. It makes for a really difficult day for our family, I can tell you that. But I think at the end of the day, that forced my hand on doing the televons. So we're gonna see how sweet it really is. And it better be sweet now that we've done this. And guys, if you have questions, leave in the comments below. Believe me, on these complex projects, I want you to understand something. When you have a technical question like these, you have to watch the whole video. You have to, because I can't remember all this stuff. I try my best to present you with some details and stuff, like what we wrote down if you're gonna try to do the flaperons. But the truth is, just set it up the way I did and follow exactly, or just do it bind and fly style. And bind and fly style would be fine, and you'll be happy, I promise, okay? So without further ado, so much more coming from Brian Phillips RC. We hope you'll be with us on the next go around, and hopefully this plane will be in your hangar anytime soon. Check the link in the video description below. Also, if you want to check for coupon codes at brianphillipsrc.com, that's www.brianphillipsrc.com, BRIANPHILLIPSRC.com. Check it out, guys. We try to keep all those coupon codes quick and availably easy to access. And if you're searching for something you can't find, we organize our whole platform by playlist. And you can go over to the brianphillipsrc.com to help redirect you right to where you need to be within the YouTube ocean of industry. I mean, so many different videos, it's really hard to find them sometimes. So, and we have so much content, it's actually hard for us to find it sometimes. So that would be the best way to do it. And we have found that the playlist search results can be somewhat weird. The other day, we were both searching for the same thing with the same word on 2 different computers. One returned the results and one did not. Yep. That's what happens on YouTube, so that's why you go to www.brianphillipsrc.com, where it actually does work because the camera crew does it, and it's she's careful and very good at it. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching.